Today, we are talking about boosting your immunity strategies for a stronger you. Got to tell you, first thing that comes to mind is how there's a lot of people out there who don't want you to successfully boost your immunity at all because they're making a
And do
lot
you
of
even,
money. Yeah,
yeah, do you even need to boost your immunity? Or is it more about getting your immune system to act appropriately?
yes. But I think first we got to talk about the fact that there's fortunes being made on the immune system being dysregulated. And that does
Where's our
segue
check?
right. Our patients want us to keep them healthy and keep their immune systems in shape. And that is why our membership programs are very affordable monthly, because once we get people to that shape, they don't need a lot more work. They don't need a lot more care and attention. And, let's talk about why the immune system has become such an incredibly hot topic. So over the last really few centuries, but particularly the last 3, 4, 5, 6 decades or so, immune problems have exploded in prevalence and severity. More and more and more of these illnesses are becoming more and more prominent and prevalent. A great example of this is eosinophilic esophagitis, which is a pretty rare diagnosis in relative terms, but it used to be so rare that it was something like 1 in 100,000 people. And they had to go back through biopsies at the Mayo Clinic in order to even find cases before it became more common. And now it's so common that practically every academic medical center with a large academic allergy program has a component of that program that is dedicated to eosinophilic esophagitis. And like I said, that's one example. I could go through every autoimmune or allergic disease on the planet, and you would see the exact same thing. Now, the reason this is so important for people to understand as sort of the backdrop on boosting immunity is that many people don't realize that the real problem with modern immune systems isn't that they aren't strong enough. It's that they are misdirected. They are confused. They are dysregulated. So, for example, instead of your immune system attacking bacteria that need to be eradicated or pruned back in your microbiome, it's attacking your small intestinal villi or enterocytes and creating leaky gut and celiac disease and all these other things, all these other problems. Or it's attacking a brain cell that looks like a gluten molecule, which is or a gliadin molecule, which is what celiac nervous system. Well, what is the word for it? Like celiac. It manifests in different ways, but it's basically gluten sensitive neuropathies work. So the immune system is getting confused. And that is the context in which people have started to think, well, I've got to boost my immunity, usually as a result of thinking, well, my body is being invaded by dangerous microbes that are going to attack me, derail my system, kill me, take over my body. And there's just so many little narratives here that need to be unpacked, some of which, by the way, are censored pretty heavily, and for which reason we have our email list. We have private webinars on Thursdays that only go out to the email list where we cover those kinds of topics for people because we just can't talk about them candidly here. So, Jim, what are your
And
thoughts on all that?
you can go to stillmanwellness.com and get on the email list. That way we can have open discussions, and we really like to answer questions on those calls.
Yes, we
my
do.
my number one thought is from my own experience, the big thing for me with my immune system regulation, because I was having issues with it, was, getting more sun exposure.
Well, tell your story
You know,
briefly so people know it.
well, I ended up, first I got ulcerative colitis because I was being stupid, working too much, training too hard, being dumb, taking stimulants too much, and I ended up getting ulcerative colitis, and I had to learn how to relax, change my diet, work in, so to speak. Then I ended up getting a pedicure and almost had my leg amputated. And then I met a guy named Dr. Jack Cruz. They were able to get my infection under control with antibiotics, but it kept coming back multiple times a year. And I went to, I met Dr. Jack Cruz, started following him, did a couple consults with him. And he was like, dude, like, you're in the gym from 5 a.m. till 8 p.m. Like, when's the last time you've seen the sun? And so he really, brought it to my attention about, how the sun runs your immune system, that your immune system changes with the seasons, all that stuff. And that's how I ended up meeting you at one of his retreats. And
That's
that
right.
really, once I started getting outside, I started getting in the sun. When all my issues with digestion went away, from my colitis. And two, because I had managed them before, but I was sensitive to, like, if I ate gluten, I would be just a mess. Now I can eat gluten from time to time. I don't eat it all the time, but I can eat a pizza and not have any problems since getting out in the sun. So my immune system is much better regulated. I think because as people become human zoo animals, and I think a big part of it too is, like, the hygiene hypothesis. I mean, we've taken it way too far. Like, kids, like, parents won't let their kids go out and play in the mud. They're afraid to, like, oh my gosh, don't get dirty, don't roll around in the mud. Kids here are running around their bare feet, they're freaking, with chickens and with everything else. And I think a lot of the things that we basically had to manage in the past are not there because we're just so hygienic. We're constantly washing our hands with hand sanitizer. And I think that plays a big part in this whole thing. Of our immune system just almost being bored, that it doesn't really have anything to do, because a lot of the things that it would have had to manage, whether it was I'm not saying go out and get parasites and things, but people do use that as a treatment to regulate immune system. But we're not exposed to a lot of the things we used to be exposed to, and then temperature changes and all these different things. We live in this perfectly pristine, clean environment,